I'd like to call this meeting in order. I apologize for being late. Our executive session ran over what we had anticipated it being. The first item on the agenda this evening is public comments. Before we get into public comments, I'd just like to make a statement that this is an opportunity for those of you who would like to address the board on a concern that you have. And it's perfectly appropriate to do so. I want to be very sure that people understand that this is not an opportunity to voice criticism of an individual or make a derogatory mark about an individual. And if I feel that that is taking place, it's my responsibility to end that conversation and move on. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I just hope that if there is a discussion and there are points of contention, that we do it in a civilized way that is not offensive to any individual. Very good. So I'll open the floor to general comments. If you would just give your name, Ms. Woodward, that would be...
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Marilyn Woodard, an English teacher of 35 years at Mount Anthony Union High School. I'm here representing a group of individuals from MAUHS. I have a statement to present to the board that was signed by 95 employees. The statement reads, "We, the undersigned faculty and staff of Mount Anthony Union High School, acknowledge our commitment to the SVSU goal, open quote, to develop and foster a culture within the SVSU educational community in which behavior and communication are driven by the values of respect, honesty, commitment, and openness," close quote. Our educational community has worked diligently since the fall of 2011 to heal and establish trusting relationships across all levels of the educational system. We ask the MAU board to review the actions in connection with the MAUHS principal search and hiring process in light of this critical SVSU goal adopted in April 2012. We also have 5 areas of concern we would like the board to investigate. At the May 5th, 2015 MAU special meeting, Superintendent Colkin stated that he has, open quote, heard many of the rumors and can only imagine the ones that I haven't heard, close quote. We too have heard much talk about things that were said and done during the process of hiring MAU's principal and would like the board to communicate what the truths are, especially regarding these 5 items. Number 1, did Superintendent Colkin ever meet with a full search committee to hear the committee members' input and feedback about the candidates? Number 2, did Superintendent Colkin inform the search committee members that there would be a small team conducting the site visits only to do it alone? Number 3, what were the superintendent's communications with both finalists before the final hiring of the principal? Number 4, did MAU board member Francis Kenny communicate with other board members prior to the April 7th meeting and say, open quote, "We want the woman," close quote? If so, this would have been prior to having a discussion of the candidate's strengths and limitations based on the search committee's input and the superintendent's official recommendation. And number 5, why was non-MAU board member Larry Johnson allowed to stay in the executive session discussion on April 7th? We look forward to your response to these questions, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I have the
Yeah, if you just give me that. I'm not going to try to answer those now, but I will guarantee you that this board will respond to the questions that you have asked.
Would you like a copy of it?
I would, just to be sure that I get them correctly. 1 minute, please, until we finish this, and I see your hand up there. I'll call you in a minute. Just let me finish this one thing first. Thank you. I will.
And these
Those. Okay. Very good. I'll get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Yes, there was a question in the back, or do you have another comment? Yes.
My name's Jean Connor. I live in Bennington. I also have some concerns that I'd like to present to the board. I served on the BSD board for 8 years, during which time we hired several principals. I also served on a search committee for a new superintendent, so I have a pretty clear picture of how this is supposed to work. I have too many questions and concerns about the way the new principal for MAU was hired to address them all at this meeting, so I'll address my top 3 in no particular order. Hopefully others will speak and cover a few more for me. I can't understand why the board voted at their April 7th meeting. Is it true they had never even met Ms. Cresto? How could they vote with so little knowledge about the candidate? Why would there be a vote on such an important issue with 2 board members missing? And the agenda said there would be an update on the principal search, not a vote. Not one board member had the courage to speak up and say we need more information to make an informed decision. That is what is expected of you. That's what you signed up for. That's what the community expects you to do. After speaking to a search committee member, it was confirmed that the superintendent never met with them to get their feedback on the candidates. Why would Mr. Colkin not want input from the group of people who had spent so much time interviewing the candidates? How could Mr. Colkin possibly make a good decision without their input? They were the most valuable part of the process. They voluntarily gave hours of their personal time and had more information about the candidates than anyone. And Mr. Colkin didn't bother to meet with them? Why was Larry Johnson at the executive session prior to the MAU meeting on April 7th? He should not have been there, period. At the April 27th SVSU meeting, Fran Kenny said he wanted him there to represent Shaftesbury since he was not going to be able to attend due to the fact that he was ill. He went on to say Larry sat through the executive session on April 7th and didn't say a word and could not vote. If he had a legitimate reason to be there, which he didn't, how could he represent the town of Shaftesbury if he couldn't speak or vote? And as it turns out, Fran was at the meeting after all. Once again, not one board member present at the meeting on April 27th reacted to hearing Fran say, "You can throw your code of ethics in the garbage." The kids of the town of Shaftesbury deserve better. The worst part of this saga is that I now have no confidence in the MAU board or Mr. Colkin to make well-researched, thoughtful decisions. They have reduced what could have been an amazing opportunity to continue the positive momentum at MAU to an exercise in damage control, and that is a shame.
Thank you.
It feels kind of strange being on this side.
You
of
want
the
to
table.
introduce yourself?
I'm Seanmarie Oller. I'm a community member in Bennington. So I'm here tonight to comment on what I did not or do not see happening at the MAU board level. My comments, however, about the superintendent's action, I will address with the SVSU board. Having been through a search process numerous times over 20 years on this board, I want to reflect on what I see as the board's responsibility. I have brought with me past examples of discussions, past examples of looking for input on the MAUMS principle twice, and the brochure, in fact, that was put together by the MAU board in looking for what turns out to be Sue Maguire. So I will pass these down to the boards. Many board members were actually here to see part of the process that had been done before.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
could you
Just bring them
just
down to
bring
me.
all the documents down to the chair and not distribute them to the board? Public comment documents. of the
Well,
meeting.
Leon, we're not.
In all of these cases of the hiring of the past principal and 2 MAU-MS principals, in each of these cases, the board discussed what qualities they wanted to see in the next hire. What things they wanted to see discussed, what areas of growth needed to happen, where there were challenges, and what they were doing well. I will give 2 examples of this board's discussing things they wanted to see happen. A number of years ago, started with Mr. Holbrook, wanted to see literacy improve. We were concerned when I was on this board about the level of the kids coming in at 6th and 7th grade with literacy skills. This was a board discussion over numerous meetings. The high school principal at the time, Sue Maguire, was asked to come up with an idea. She researched it, and this board, in fact, supported literacy teachers at both the middle and high school level. If you take a look at the last 10 years, you will see a huge increase in literacy levels over the past 10 years. This was a board discussion. This was talked about. This was transparent, open, and open to community input, public input. The goal was improved literacy, and in fact, that's what happened. In terms of the principals, this board also sat around and talked about what qualities, and I have the past papers, that they wanted to see in the middle school principal. You'll see from what is now in Tim's hands, the brochure, the mission, and what MAU stood for 10, 11, 12 years ago, and what they were looking for. So, in explaining just a little bit, and I know time is of the essence, I asked this board, given these past practices and your responsibility to the community, why was none of this done in preparation for hiring the new principal? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other people that would like to make some comments? Yes.
Hi, my name is Dory Hafford. My daughter goes to school here. I'd like to bring up about the dress code. I came in and talked with Mr. Payne and a few others in a meeting a couple weeks ago. My daughter was getting harassed by the teachers on how she was dressing. Granted, she wasn't dressed like this. She had 2 shirts on, plus obviously her underclothes, and that was not good enough. I get a message from my daughter the other day saying that she was not going to be called on when she needed help because of the way she was dressed. Now, I want to know this. Is this supposed to be a school where you educate the children, or is it that you have to dress a certain way? Because if it's to dress a certain way, then I think not only the males but the females need to have a class in here to learn not only self-respect, but respect for the opposite sex. Because that right there is nonsense. One does not have to do with another. I'm not blaming it on the school, I'm not blaming it on the children, but it's a community effort. And this right here, if you're gonna hold a child back because of the way they dress, and you don't want to deal with it because of that, I believe that is really wrong. And if a girl has her shoulder showing, and a male gets excited over it, well, you know something, that's something that the parents should have to deal with, not the school. You bring it up to the male, us females should not have to stop because of the way the males are.
Fine. I would, I understand your point. Have you had an opportunity to speak to the administration of the school where your daughter attends?
She attends this school, and I had a meeting with Mr. Payne and her counselor, and I don't remember the other couple people that were in there, and my fiance was in there. And they were the ones that told me to come here tonight.
I see. And what type of a solution are you looking for with this? We have policies. We do encourage our administrators to make appropriate decisions on dress and general decorum within the school, and by and large, we back those decisions. I'm not sure of the specifics of this, but I certainly can look into it and get back to you. But generally speaking, we have standards that we expect all students, whether they be male or female, to meet. And if they don't meet those standards, then appropriate action is taken by the administration.
Is it just the students, or is it the teachers too?
Excuse me, how they,
How the teachers dress? Because they're supposed to be an influence on our children, and if they're wearing just as, skimpy as something our kids are wearing, then they have no room to talk.
that
And
is
whenever you have a child that comes in-
Very good, that's the responsibility of the administration, the principal.
And that's what
of those schools.
that's my point. If it's supposed to be good for one, it should be good for all. Whenever it comes to like on how short or long your shirt, or not your shirt, your shirt shorts or your skirt is, supposed to be what, like about the same length as your fingertips? Well, guess what? That's not too far from your private parts.
Okay, I will get back to you on this. I'm not familiar with the situation, but I'll speak with the appropriate administrator, and I will be in touch with you as to answer some of your questions.
I hope so, because I really would like to work this out, because I am a mother, not just to my daughter,
Right.
but to all kids, and I will stand up for them, since most parents either can't or won't.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mary Garish. I'm a voter here in Bennington, and I would like to take the discussion back to the hiring of the principal. And it's my understanding that, and I think we would all agree, that this board is subject to the Open Meetings Act. And I do understand that that there was an executive session, and I do understand that the vote was taken in public. However, under the Open Meetings Act, it specifically says at subsection F3 that if the issue is the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, the body shall make the final decision in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision at that meeting. It's my understanding that Mr. Colkin did not explain the reasons, that those reasons were supposed to be explained tonight. However, that is still a violation of this Open Meetings Act, the fact that they were not explained at the time that the vote was taken. I think that the Open Meetings Act and the transparency it represents is important not only to this board, but to other boards, to our community, and to our students. It's up to us to set an example of transparency in the operation of government, and I would submit that it's up to this board to make sure that law is followed to the T for that, among other reasons. Thank you.
We might try to answer that now. The board did vote in open session. The law states that you can, there was consensus that was granted in executive session, and then the board did vote for the appointment of the new principal in open.
That wasn't my point. My point was...
Right, I've got to, that just to clarify that.
Yes.
I just asking the superintendent if he'd like to address that, her concern about not making an explanation of why you chose that particular candidate.
I believe that after the vote was taken, I did speak about Glenda Cresto and her qualifications.
It was my understanding that the public was told that this meeting would be the time when an explanation was made. And I thought that's what was reflected. Are you saying that's incorrect? That wasn't said?
That question came up at the following meeting on April 7th, which was not the same meeting that, I don't have the right date on me. That question came up on the second meeting regarding some questions about, I think, her qualifications and size of school and things like that, and that's what we said we would answer at this meeting.
So I don't understand why that wouldn't have been answered if the explanation was given at the first meeting. I'm just trying to clarify. You're saying you did give such an explanation at the first meeting?
At the first meeting, after the vote was taken, the chair of the committee asked me to speak on Glenda Cresto, and I did give a brief statement about her.
And
at that
that supplied the reasons for the vote being what it was?
And
That's
then at
what
the
this
meeting
says.
on April 7th, I did give a statement as to some of the not April 7th.
Okay, just to
yeah.
clarify, my objection is that in order to comply with this act, the reasoning of the decision to hire must be given at the meeting where the decision is made. And so if you're saying that's what you did, then I guess it's for us to go back and look at it and see if that explanation was given. And I wanted to bring this to your attention because I was sure you wouldn't want to be violating this act. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, just got a couple other people ahead.
Hi, my name's Jeffrey Maloney. I'm here for two reasons. One, to back up what Ms. Hafford had to say. I'm sure most of you would remember going to school in jeans that had big tear marks across the backs and knees all wore out, guys wearing their muscle shirts and, but we still got an education, okay? To turn their back on somebody just because they had their shoulder out. What, was the teacher aroused? That they couldn't handle themselves under that situation? That hits my second point, okay? Your hiring practices, okay? Maybe your hiring practices should be reevaluated, because I live down on the very first block of Pleasant Street by your Belly's Deli. And I just happened to be walking up past the elementary school, and a nice child asked his teacher, an older child, "Teacher, how do you spell curious?" Her answer was C-U-R-E-O-U-S. If she can't spell, how in the heck can she teach?
Thank
That's
you.
all I really have.
We had another question over there. Yes, Rosemary, would you just introduce yourself, please?
Rosemary Pelletier, community member and former educator in this district. I had the opportunity shortly after I retired to teach at Mount Anthony, and I had a wonderful experience and was delighted with the tone in the building and the respect that the students had, the collegiality with the faculty, the level of trust, et cetera. And I feel that this particular process has undermined that considerably. And what I'm hearing tonight sort of adds to, whether it's intentional or not. When I heard that Mike Malloy was a finalist, I was delighted, because I knew that the climate that I had seen is the work that it's a deliberative process. People work to create that kind of an environment. And I knew that Mike had been part of that, and I figured, that with his qualifications, his commitment to the district, et cetera, that he was very likely to be he would be a good principal here. And so when I heard that somebody else had been selected, I was interested to see what an amazing candidate this would be. And I guess my concern at this point is because of the information that's available on the internet and looking, there are some red flags that were raised in just my precursory looking at things, and I won't, iterate them. But the fact that this board, in selecting somebody outside of the community who has some red flags, did not address those in making that appointment, I think leads people in the community to, it undermines their trust in the deliberativeness of this body. And I say that knowing a number of you and respecting you, and yet even that, knowing that, it still makes me wonder. So I can't imagine the damage that it is doing, beyond this room. And I can't imagine now how Ms. Cresto must feel, knowing that these kinds of conversations are happening, and there is, it's hard enough to come into a school of this size and meet the challenges with a lot of experiences and with people behind you, and it's a whole other thing now to do it in an environment in which transparency has been lacking, and so there is already a climate that has to be compensated for. And I think that's a shame, and I I hope this board can do something to either reestablish the trust or at least convince people that it really was a deliberative process, because it's beginning to sound like it really was not.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Mary?
Good evening. I'm Mary Morrissey, community member and a state representative. Wasn't going to speak this evening, but I thought it was important for all of you to hear that I have received over 35 calls from not only teachers but community members very concerned with the process that is at hand. I think I was probably one of the only legislators at some of our meetings that we had throughout the year asking almost monthly what the update was on the principal process. These are very big shoes to fill. Sue, we thank you for your service. And so it needed to be a community-minded, transparent, very open process. There has been, this community, as you know, we have a number of challenges, and I think the school district has worked hard in minimizing those to the best of their ability, and working. Our teachers and board members have tried to work together to make the process better for our children and a good education. And the calls I got were so concerning and very, I think, disheartened with the process that I'm not sure how we go forward from here with a new principal. I think there is the lack of transparency. I think there's the concerns of someone being told they had the position and now not, is my understanding. I think there needs to be a full understanding of what's gone on in this process for the public out there to be able to get their arms around it and move on. And the most important thing is so that we can get this somehow back on an even keel and people being able to do their job and to educate our children.
Thank you, Mary. There was another hand up I saw somewhere. Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Sure. Totally off the subject. Hi, I'm Laurie Mulhern. I'm a resident of Bennington. And I want to applaud the community for coming to a board meeting. I'd like this kind of participation at all of them. And I encourage more community members to come forward to be active participants in our educational system's well-being. I think it's important we share that. This board and many others have been asked to come together and act with greater transparency and for the greater good of the educational system. I do see some aspects of that coming as the group is coming more together, and I'm hoping that those efforts are continued. The challenge that I have this evening is in regards to just overall, this is sort of reflective of a disengagement of the community. And I, as a parent, crave educational partnerships, and I have been saying those words for a long time. And I feel that in order to get parents in the community more engaged in education, I would hope to see, even though there's a lot going on, just more in the trenches kind of work. And I think it's important that, you know, someone pursue this at board level and at all the boards level to really engage the community, because oftentimes, as you all know, I'm a frequent flyer at board meetings, and I could be here by myself, maybe with one or two others. And I would love to see this kind of participation at all of them. I think it's really important because there's a lot of good work going on, but we do have challenges, and I think it does take a community to make the educational system work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, there was somebody else who was on her way up.
Hi. I'm Janie Jenkins. I'm also a community member, and I did speak at the last meeting, and I guess I wanted to follow up again on just the need for transparency and community involvement. I do think this board owes this community an explanation of the process that was followed and the decision-making, the reasoning that was followed in making this process. I do think that Mary makes a very good point when she spoke earlier about the open meeting law. It's not the same to say what someone's resume credentials are as the reasoning that one used to make a decision. I would like to know what this board's vision of Mount Anthony Union High School in the future is going to be. I think Seanmarie spoke quite well about the process that happened before. I was in this community when Sue was hired. There was community involvement. We talked about what do we care about our schools? How do we see them changing in the future? What needs to change to make this work? What kind of principal do we need to lead us? I didn't hear any of that discussion. And even after we've chosen a principal, we've not had that discussion. I am very concerned that we chose a principal without knowing why we chose that principal. There were 3 phases of this process. The search committee, which devoted a lot of time looking at different principal candidates and trying to decide who would best fit our school. The superintendent, who then made a decision on what candidate he was going to put forth. And third, this board, who, as I understand, was emailed the resume of both candidates, but in fact had not met nor had any opportunity to hear what the vision of those 2 candidates who wanted to be the principal of this high school, actually what they held, what they saw as the future of this high school. We don't have any idea of that, and that is a real shame. This community does deserve more, and this community does deserve an answer from this board, from the superintendent, and I think actually from the search committee too. I would love to hear from all those pieces. How did the search committee work with the superintendent? It sounds like those were very independent processes. Jim, my understanding is that you weren't able to go to the interviews. So what was the cross-pollination between all the work the search committee did and the individual interviews that the superintendent did? Then what was the cross-pollination between the superintendent and the board? What I understand, I can't know what happened in executive session, but what in the world was the discussion? My understanding was that the candidate that was recommended was not the candidate that in fact was chosen by this school board, and I've had several of you in this room confirm that that was the case. So with what criteria did this board choose a principal? And that is a really important piece of information for this community because it helps us know how we move forward. And so again, my plea is we really need transparency, we really need community involvement, and we really need, I think at this point, for this board to step up to the plate and really give an explanation for what happened. Thank you.
Are there any other comments that people would like to make? Once again, I think that Ms. Woodward gave us a challenge to answer 5 questions, and this board will consider those as well as the superintendent will consider those, and we'll get answers to you. I don't want to be in a position of trying to answer those without consultation with other board members and the superintendent. I can tell you, though, that the process that was outlined by the administration was followed by this board. We'll go into more detail at a future meeting. Fran?
Okay, I guess I'm going to speak for myself. I'm Francis Kenny, and I guess I'm confused. I don't know if I was at the same meeting or not in executive session. And yes, Ms. Connors, I did say throw the code of ethics in the garbage because it only depends on who the person or persons are. And seeing as how my name got out of executive session, I don't know why in heck you don't know the rest of it. Somebody had said, maybe it was Ms. Jenkins, that she heard from other board members that that's not the way the vote was. I have to tell you, I was there, and every board member was allowed to say yay or nay as a consensus. And one board member actually said it's time for change and we should go with Glenda. Now, I'm not going to speak for the other board members. If they'd like to say something, they're welcome to say something. But I'm confused. Nobody said anything. We took a consensus. It was unanimous. We came out in open session. It was unanimous. I don't get it. But it's okay to drag Fran Kenny's name out of executive session. That's fine. I got big shoulders and thick skin. But my point is, that's why I've always said about code of ethics. It only depends on who the person or persons are that it applies to. Everybody else can go do their own thing. So I'm defending myself. I did what I thought was right. I did not sit in on the committee. I did look at the resumes. I have nothing against Sue Maguire, Mike Maloney, or anything. I made a decision that I was elected to, and apparently I don't think it was the wrong decision, but it's my decision. I'm allowed to do that. And to have people come in here and sit here and crucify me for something that I am allowed to do, I don't get it. And then and Nathan said he felt victimized because if anybody should feel victimized, it's me. But it's okay. I'm not going to argue about it or anything. I did what I was elected to do. And I really am concerned. You talk about executive session and things that are supposed to be left in executive session. I try to do that, but I'll tell you, it's real tough to do.
Thank you, Brad.
That's all I got to say.
Very good. Is that a hand up, or is that just
Yes,
waving?
it is a hand up.
Oh.
Thank you so much. I have a question. I appreciate your response about wanting to give a due consideration to the questions that have been asked, including the question about the open meeting. I'm curious as to how the public will know when those questions will be answered, because I'm sure that all of us that are here, and perhaps some of the folks that might watch this at home, would like to be present for that explanation or summary or whatever we want to term it.
My thought, without giving it more consideration than I've had time to give it, would be that our next board meeting, which is I think it's the 17th of June, which is a Wednesday. If that's the third Wednesday of the month, it would be the 17th. We have a number of things to go over. The superintendent will go over. There will be an open house to meet the new principal. I think it's on the 8th, Jim, or what's the...
It's Monday, June 8th.
June 8th. That will be an opportunity for the community to meet her and address some of your concerns. I'll let the superintendent speak to that. He's going to be running that meeting. I think that's...
So the questions will be answered before the open house to meet her, correct?
No, the open house is the 8th of June. It won't be until the next board meeting is the 17th.
With all due respect, doesn't that seem a little bit backwards? We're all here commenting that we don't think the process was transparent, that we don't think it was appropriate, and perhaps even violated the open meetings law. And so to say we're going to explain that after you meet the new principal, it doesn't seem appropriate to me, with all due respect.
Right. The decision has been made by the board. The board would have to reverse the decision, not to stick with it.
I think part of the reason of asking these questions is to make certain that the board has well considered some of the factors involved. And so I am not suggesting that the board will or won't reverse its decision, but I am suggesting that by giving due deliberation to the questions that have been asked this evening, the board may want to reconsider its decision.
We'll certainly take that in consideration.
Thank you.
Can I speak?
Yes.
I'm really surprised that you're really surprised that we're asking the questions that we're asking and you're not prepared to answer them.
Will you identify yourself, please?
My name is Dr. Ronald Murphy. I'm a teacher at the high school for another 21 days. But I'm surprised that you aren't prepared to answer the questions that are coming. You surely must have known that they were going to be asked. You've got a lot of people that came here to ask these questions. and you're doing the same thing, you're putting it into the committee, and let's delay this, and let's find out how we're going to answer this. Good heavens, don't you have some idea of how you want to answer these questions? It's terrible. I mean, and you're talking about the choice of a principal or another person to be a principal. What's the choice here? Is the environment that exists in the high school that has been created by Mrs. Maguire, who has done just a phenomenal job, and that somebody would say it's time for a change, is so uninformed and so lacking in intelligence. Mr. Kenny saying how he's being singled out. You should worry more about the students than your own personal, how I'm offended by this or not offended by this.
We don't want to get into...
More so than
Well, he's the one that mentioned it. I just thought I'd comment on that too.
Right.
I guess my biggest thing is I'm almost overwhelmed that you can't come up with the answers that are being asked, because you surely know that they're coming tonight. Look at all the people that are here. Why else do you think we'd be here? Because we're upset that we've been betrayed in a closed session when promises were made so insincerely to the people involved, that when that type of thing happens, it's very difficult to develop trust in whatever comes down the road, whether it's good or bad. Surely you must know that. You cannot treat people by saying, we're going to put you in as principal, and then the next hour you're not, or hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or next committee, or whatever it takes you people to figure out what you want to say and when.
Are there any other comments that people would like to make? Yes.
Hi, Jeannie Jenkins again. I really do think you guys need to answer tonight. You already made a decision. That means you had already thought about why you made that decision. It seems incredible that you cannot answer person by person what your vision for this community is and why you chose one candidate over another. You've already made the decision. You do not need another month to come up with an explanation for why. And in fact, it should have happened. Sorry, and I didn't mean to be, that should have happened at the time you came out of executive session and decided to announce who the next principal was. You have an obligation. You represent this community. You are not dictators in this community. You represent me. I want to know why you voted the way you voted. And I think you owe it to us tonight, not in a month.
You got a point. Let me just give that some thought.
That's why I'm here.
Excuse me?
I'm here for those answers.
I'm fine with saying things. So.
Okay.
All right.
Let me just before Jim is going to answer something, let me just give you what transpired. As most of you know, that the statute is that the superintendent recommends to the board his choice for the principal of the school. The board then either accepts the recommendation of the superintendent or it does not. The superintendent at the executive session made a recommendation, a strong recommendation for the principal of the high school. The board voted then to accept the superintendent's recommendation. The superintendent had the results of the search committee that interviewed the candidates, the potential candidates for that position. He had requested of the committee to recommend to him those candidates that the committee felt were suitable for the position of principal. The committee made those recommendations to the superintendent. The committee made those recommendations to the superintendent. The ball was then in his court. and he made the decision to recommend to the board the candidate that the board approved. Jim?
Okay. I'm a little apprehensive about discussing executive session and what went on there and all that. But a couple of things that I definitely can see where it's thought that there's a lack of transparency, though it, believe it or not, believe what you will, it was unintentional. My attempt was to be respectful, particularly since there is an internal candidate that everyone knows, to try to respect their privacy, and that was really what was driving some of my actions in the process. We did go through a selection process, and I followed the board policy, the appointment administrators, policy 4020. And I'll be repeating what Tim said, screening committee. And understand that what the instructions to the screening committee was whatever name they brought forward is a finalist. Any one of those could be selected to be the principal, or don't bring the name forward. And that's the process. So to answer a couple of specific questions, did I meet with the screening committee afterwards? No, I didn't. And that didn't occur to me to meet with them because I had received their recommendation of who the two candidates were. And that was the process. I met with them prior to it and explained the process, but not, I received their recommendation afterwards. Question about, I think, if I go back to what I wrote. Yep. Oh, thank you, they're right there, thank you. Did the superintendent inform the search committee members that there would be a small team conducting the site visits, only to do it alone? I don't recall telling anyone that there would be a small team. I really don't recall. That's back to January 29th. I know that I did do the site visits myself, so I really can't answer that. If there's somebody on the search committee that says that that's what I said, then I apologize for that, but that was not the process I used. And things get modified as we go along. What were the superintendent's communications with both finalists before the final hiring of the principal? I had communications with both members. And this is where the transparency issue with me trying to respect somebody's privacy kind of gets in the way. But it's been brought forward, so I'm going to speak freely. 2 days prior to the meeting, I called Glenda Cresto and I told her that I would move her name forward to be the next principal of the high school. And the afternoon before that meeting, after hearing from several school board members, I didn't believe that I was going to have that support for that candidate. So I called the second candidate and said to him that I would move his name forward. But let me tell you everything that I said to him. I said there are at least, that by my count, at least two, it's contentious. There are at least two board members that will not support your candidacy, possibly 4, maybe even 6. So it's contentious. I don't know what will happen. And if we come out of executive session and you're not recommended, then you would know what happened. So that is exactly what I said to that candidate. It's not really a strong endorsement of any candidate. It's a reflection of the political process that I have to deal with as what candidate I could get forward. What I said to both candidates is I didn't want to bring any name forward that wasn't going to enjoy the full support of the committee. So I did bring that name, Mike Malloy's name, forward, and you heard bits and pieces. I'm not going into who said what. That is for them to say. But in that meeting, then I changed and recommended Glenda Cresto. So I am speaking to what I did in executive session. I first brought Mike Malloy's name forward, and after the discussion went around, then I made the recommendation that it would be Glenda Cresto, and then I came out of executive session and voted for Glenda. So from my perspective, that is what happened. That was the process we used. We followed the policy. And do I think that it's possible that on the search committee that there might have been a different impression of like ranking? Did they rank people and select them? I heard that the search committee might have had a preference and had a vote, but that wasn't their instruction. Their instruction was to don't bring anybody forward, because I had asked originally for 3 names to be brought forward. The pool was 18. They were going to interview 5. 1 withdrew before the interview, and might be a repeat for many of you. So there was 4 candidates that they interviewed, and then from that pool, they gave me 2 names forward who I then interviewed, did the background check, did the site visits. And it was back and forth for me to make which recommendation. And why did I choose the candidate that I did? Because that is the candidate that has the most full-time experience as an administrator. Not a part-time administrator, full-time administrator. One of the comments that I heard the last meeting that I said that I would address this meeting, that one of the criticisms of Glenda is that she came from a very small school and she isn't prepared for taking care of a large school. To that I say, we all agree. Sue Maguire has done a wonderful job as the principal. What was the size of the school that she was at before she came to the high school? It was a smaller school. So I based my decision not necessarily on the size of the school, but based who had done all facets of what an administrator does, and that's really what it came down to for me. I don't know if I answered every question, and I might not have an answer for every question, but that's the process as I see it.
Would anybody like to, yes, Marilyn?
Marilyn Woodard again. I'd like to make it clear that I'm no longer representing all of the teachers. This is just me. Mr. Colkin, you're dismissive of the search committee, parents, students. Why would you do that?
I don't know how you feel I was dismissive if I took their recommendation. They recommended Glenda Cresto, and they also recommended Mike Malloy.
Maybe if you had met with them and sat down and had a conversation, you could listen to the reasoning that they all had as a group. That's pretty special. They were knowledgeable about it. They did the work.
I should say that I did meet with 2 members of the committee who requested to meet with me. I did not hear from any other members requesting to meet with me. So I disagree that I was dismissive. I listened to anyone who approached me on this. So it was not my intention to meet with them after I had their recommendation. So I mean, we're going to disagree on that. I mean, many of you have a view of how you would have conducted it, and I have my view, and that's probably where the disagreement lies on that. And I don't know what else to tell you on that. But you know, what happened has happened and transpired, and I can't go back and do that. I mean, a lot of this has come forward, as you say, after the process. I spelled out, whether anybody was listening, I spelled out I gave updates at every MAU meeting about where we were in the process. And it was only after the selection was made that I started to hear a lot of these suggestions, not while that process was going on. And it was a lengthy process. And that's one of the reasons why I know Tim didn't want me to speak and answer questions tonight, because I know I'm violating the board policy that we're not supposed to be having a debate back and forth with the audience. But this is a serious matter, and that's why I wanted to at least try to address it. Though I know that many of the things I'm going to say is not going to settle any argument or any debate, because it is, as I said at our last meeting, what happened is not what was expected, and you had a candidate that everyone knew, and that always, it makes it even more difficult.
It's absolutely not what was expected. It's absolutely not what we were led to believe. It's absolutely not what we were informed about. Not at all.
I believe that I selected or recommended to the board the best candidate for the position.
I respectfully disagree. I think you've made a spectacular mistake.
Thank you. Just a minute. Yes? You got two people. I'll get to you next time.
Seanmarie Oller from Bennington. Really, all I have to say right now is I still want to know what and where the board's discussion was around the change that needed to happen at the high school. We all know that continuous growth is continuous growth. This board has a responsibility to its community and certainly to its current principal to speak up, to say what they want to see change. We all want to see growth. We all want to see continuous improvement. But to all of a sudden say we needed a change or this is what it's going to be, that's the surprise. I mean, we all want continuous improvement. We all need it. And I say this board owes this community what they want to see for our community's children.
That discussion about change was an executive session. If an individual board member wants to respond, that's fine.
But you all voted that way. So.
Well, if an individual board member wants to respond, that's fine. But I'm not going to ask any of those board members to do so. Yes.
Jean Connor, Bennington. I'm curious if the missing board members that weren't at the meeting, did you know there was going to be a vote that night? Because the
Yes, they
agenda
did.
said there was going to be an update.
No, there was going to be a vote.
We had no idea that there'd be a vote for principal that night.
No,
There was an email sent out.
there was an email sent around. Now, maybe you didn't get the email, but it was sent.
Yeah, I received the email.
Yeah.
It was a vote.
Okay.
Did the email say that they were going to decide on the principal in the
Yes.
the executive session?
Yes.
Yeah, I confirm that.
Okay. Mr. Colkin, why did you choose to call the candidates ahead of time when...
The instructions I received from the board.
I take responsibility for that. I did not know who the candidate was that the superintendent was going to recommend. And I felt, to be fair to those candidates, that I was pretty sure the board would go along with the recommendation of the superintendent. And I felt that it was inappropriate for the candidate, either candidate, to hear that decision made in public meeting and on television. I'd much rather have that individual be told individually by the superintendent that he or she was or wasn't his choice.
But you said you called Ms. Cresto 2 days before.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, to make a long story short, that was a disastrous decision to call the candidates ahead of time, knowing that who knows what's going to happen. We learned that, but it's a little too late. I would like to hear from the board members why they've, and those of you that weren't there can't speak to that, but I'd like to hear from the board members why they voted the way they voted.
Can I speak as someone that wasn't there?
Yeah.
You know, we all get elected to these seats, and lots of times there's hard decisions to be made. From what I've heard of the explanation tonight, both parties were called and told they were going to be recommended. I don't know what the discussion inside was, but the board acted, I assume in good faith, made a decision on whatever that discussion was, whether it was for change or whatever, and they then came out of that, went into a regular meeting and made it their choice, which I think is what the motion was on, that the recommendation was to hire this person and with whatever credentials they had. So when you talk about the procedure,
they did give a recommendation or make a statement why they were hiring that person. So I think what the problem and the confusion I hear is that some people believed one thing was happening when another thing was happening, and there hadn't even been a decision yet. And that has created what we're in today, and I think what we need to come out of it is trying to find a way to better communicate our thinking process of why was there this change. And I don't know if every board member needs to be asked and grilled on that. I think what we need to do is show over time why we made that change, and if we can't prove ourselves and why that change was made through this new principal that we're hiring, then it shows that we didn't make the right choice. And then people out there have their choice.
Again, in response to your question about each board member, that is an executive session, and that's why you have executive sessions. Once
Especially
again,
personnel.
If an individual board member wishes to state how he voted, that's fine, and why he voted that way, or what happened in that session, but I'm not going to ask each board member individually why he voted. Yes, Rosemary.
Can I ask a question of, Rosemary Pelletier again, a question of each board member in terms of, did you have any other information than the resume in front of you? Did you independently do any research yourself in terms of going online, looking at what is known about this candidate yourself before making that decision? And I would like to know if the decision was made solely on the paper in front of you and the recommendation of the superintendent, or if you yourself did some deliberative work in terms of that.
Once again, I'm not going to, if any board member wishes to respond to that, he or she may. Myself, I certainly did.
Okay.
I can answer that. I had no other information, and I didn't look for any other information. And just so that everybody understands this, I don't believe any board member, and I certainly didn't vote against Mr. Malloy.
Yeah.
I voted for what appeared to be the more experienced candidate in all aspects of the requirements of an administrator.
Yes, Dave?
I was on the search committee.
Okay.
And had all kind of information available to me. And we voted 2 people for him to make the decision on. I think part of the problem is him telling Mike he had the job and telling a lot of you he had the job. And that didn't go over too well, obviously.
Any other board member want to respond to Rosemary's question? If not, I'd like to move on.
Tim, yeah, I wanted
I'm sorry.
to respond, and I wasn't there. I didn't vote. I told the superintendent that I wasn't going to be there. I told him that I would support his recommendation, whoever it might be, which is my understanding of the process. And whether or not that's the way it should be, I think is a good question. I wasn't on the search committee, and to answer your question, I guess, Rosemary, better, no, I had not spent any time looking beyond the resumes.
Because I think part of my thing is, in terms of trust in the community, is that information is out there available, and we don't know if it was ignored or if it was part of the process, if it was taken into account in making the decision. And, that seems to be an important factor, at least in my mind, wanting somebody who has a commitment to this district and things like that. And what the history is.
I want to follow up, Tim, if I can, because a lot of the discussion, the input from the public tonight has been about the lack of community input in the in the process
Right.
during the, prior to the search phase, say. And I wonder whether, Jim, if you, I don't want to put you on the spot, if you would be prepared to address that. I've served, I serve on another board, a Shaftesbury board. Before Jim was a superintendent, we went through a search for our current principal, and I'd have to say that it was conducted in a very similar way to this one. There was a search committee. I don't know that there was a process that involved collecting input from the community. There was certainly no pamphlet drawn up that I remember. Fran, correct me if I'm wrong. We, as a board, eventually were given the recommendation. We approved the recommendation. Again, whether that's the way ideally it should be followed, I think is a good question, but that's my own personal experience.
Well, there was community members and stuff on that, just so.
There were community members on the committee.
On the committee.
As
Same
we're
way.
here, but there wasn't a process to try and get a sense of what are we looking for in the next principle.
Are there any other board members who'd like, Nathan?
Yes. I certainly felt at that meeting where I did not attend the executive session, that was blindsided by having this vote to vote on. And one thing that annoys me is that when you entertained the motion, it was first and second, and the vote was taken. No asking for a discussion, at which time I certainly would have voiced some kind of concern about hearing, an unexpected name being offered. In my personal opinion, anybody who doesn't think that Mike Malloy would be the best person to succeed Sue is, really tragically, out of touch with reality.
Thank you. Any other board member wish to make a statement in terms of Rosemary's? We have another question. Rosemary, you through, or would you like to?
No, that's fine.
Right. Yes.
Yes, my question is for...
If you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Barbara Ackerman. I teach at the high school. I'm a member of the community. And I guess, need a little clarification. Mr. Colkin, it sounded like earlier, and I could be mistaken, what you were saying was that based on information from the search committee, your own interviews, that in fact, Mr. Malloy was your first choice, and you came to this meeting and changed your mind based on what other board members said. Is that correct?
If you know, because if you remember what I said 2 days prior, I had informed Glenda Cresto that I was going to move her name forward. And then when we went to, and I can only speak to what I said in executive session, I did first recommend Mike Malloy, which I would say 3:30 that afternoon after discussion with several board members and what I felt I would have support for. I wanted to make sure I moved a candidate forward that would have the support of the full board.
So I guess that's my point, is that, in fact, it sounds like Mike was your first choice, and since ultimately it's your decision, you are the one that did all of the research, got information from the search committee. I'm disappointed that, in fact, you were influenced so much by members who didn't have that same information to make that decision.
I wouldn't characterize that in that way. I remember what I said. I mean, Glenda was 2 days prior my first choice. And these are very difficult decisions to make, And I considered all the input that I had on that. And I truly felt that Glenda was 2 days prior, the best candidate all around for the principalship of the high school. And, but I don't want to bring a name forward that isn't going to enjoy the support of the board. And,
But why would you not even, I mean, if ultimately it's your decision, you did the homework, and we've had board members say that, in fact, no, they didn't do homework beyond what was presented to them. You had all that info.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear because there was the chair moving. I'm sorry.
Again, I'm disappointed in, I guess, in the result, and to think that your decision was influenced by folks who are not informed well as you, I find disappointing.
I certainly understand why you would be disappointed, but I am still pleased with the candidate that we chose.
Are there any other comments? Well, I thank you all for showing up and expressing your thoughts. Obviously, you've made a deep impression on the board and members of the administration, given us a lot to think about. I hope that you will take advantage of the opportunity to meet the new principal, who will be here. Well, Jim, can you just quickly before they...
Yeah, it's Monday, June 8th, 5:30 in the afternoon, in the high school cafeteria reception for the new principal.
If there are no other comments, the board really has to move on to, I'm not trying to shut anybody up who would like to speak, but the board has to move on to some other business. Once again, thank you for showing up.
Okay.
Well, they wanted to make a choice. They should have, not us. No need the board.
I wonder if anybody understood why that was. Didn't vote against Mike Moore. I voted for what I thought was the more experienced candidate.
It's terrible.
And that's exactly what I did.
That's what all these people indicate.
What I'm expecting.
You have to do it again.
Yeah. I wanted to mention it to the chair, but snacks.
Don't.
What do I have?
I'm sure. I've
Visa.
never really asked if there are any, I'm sure I asked for comments. But, all right, let's move on. I'm going to move along quickly. I know that, let's go on to finance. We have a treasury report, just a motion to accept it.
So moved.
In a second.
The warrants are moving along somewhere,
Yeah,
are they?
we've already signed
All
them.
signed,
All
good,
signed.
thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good, we can move on. The budget status is in the, in your packet. The solar construction, there's an outfit called CES, which is an outfit that is based in Portland, and there's a consortium of schools in the state of Vermont who are working with them to develop a program to incorporate solar power into all the schools. It would be a great big project, probably wouldn't even be located on this campus. We just need authorization from this board to continue those discussions. Nothing has been decided, nothing has been determined, but they just need a commitment to move on. The only thing that they ask is that if we chose another person to represent us or be the representative of this consortium within the next 2 years, that we would pay a small fee for the work that they've done, but which, and there's nobody else really that does this. I don't think it's a fact, but it's just the way the contract reads. So they will be getting back to us. Do we have a motion just to continue the authorizing the continuation of them on the solar power? The second?
I'll second it.
Any questions?
Yeah, is this something that we're in discussion with them? Or by approving this, are we approving a
No,
contract?
we're just a discussion. It's just a matter of getting the facts and figures as to what it would be.
So there's no fees?
There's no fees, nothing.
There could be a fee for the engineering charge if we don't do it.
Right,
Yeah.
but,
Any idea what that is?
I do not.
well, if we don't, I thought that if we pick somebody else, but anyway, I'll
Yeah.
get that information for you. Right now, it's just a matter of proceeding, and I'll get back to you.
How can there be a fee if we don't do it?
Well, yeah, they're not gonna
Yeah.
do it, right.
They're charging you for the engineering study. Is if you drop out.
If we don't do it, they might, or if we pick somebody else to do it. That was my understanding from
Yeah.
Rick.
Thanks.
So
I think that's right.
You're entering into a contract that has engineering fees.
Well, I think that this really was, if we use somebody else rather than them to do the project, then we would have to pay for their engineering fees.
And if we don't do a project at all?
We don't have to pay anything. Right. We have a motion on the
Tim?
floor. Yes.
You said they probably wouldn't be on the roof, but where else you gonna put them if it's
Well,
not on
it could be way up in the North County.
It might not even be on our
And
land.
not even be on our land.
Yeah.
What it would be a mammoth thing that would just tie into the grid, and we would
Okay.
get the benefit from it. We wouldn't own any part of it, it would be done by a developer. So we have a motion on the floor, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I'm crossing the camera thing off,
I'm saying nay to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Nelson, I'm saying. We need to do some more work, I can't bring that for you. The Mosaic grant, I'm also crossing that off because we don't have enough information to be able to make a statement. We put these things on. The truck bid was included in your packet. I think the winning bid was from, I've got it here somewhere. Right, which is the old Neymar, is that right, Jim?
Correct.
Yeah, they were the best bid. We have, thank you, we have the,
I'll second that.
okay, any discussion?
Yeah, Tim, the bid, the truck we're purchasing is the vehicle they actually have in stock.
Good.
It's the lesser of the two anyway, and there's not an 8-week wait period for it.
Good.
And I will tell you, there was, from the bid specifications, there was one deviation. It does not have power windows. You have to roll.
They still make those?
Your staff is capable of that.
Okay.
They will complain, but they're good.
And Jim has been able to have the money, this is something that's included, we have the money, it's not an additional expenditure from the maintenance budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the trash bid is also included in your packet.
Got it. Yep.
And Cassell is the winning bidder on that. I think you can see it for 60, I don't know why I can't put my finger on these things. Where is it here?
So moved.
Wait a minute.
Second, let me get the figure for Richard.
It's a 3-year bid, and bid annually with a 3-year total of 62,158.
Right, 62, 158, 27.
And this bid does have in the RFP a possible 1-year
fuel adjustment
look back. When we finish the first year, we can renew for these other two numbers, or we can rebid it.
Is there a fuel adjustment clause in this? So, I mean, if the fuel goes up over 10%, we don't get an additional?
No, numbers are the numbers.
Numbers are the numbers. Yes, Ed?
Is this something that we are already, this is an additional cost in addition to our normal trash hauling, or is it
No,
replacing?
This is our hauler.
This is our hauler. This is just to renew the contract. It
We're
isn't
currently
an addition, if that's answering the
Okay,
question. So we have.
that wasn't clear to me from the documentation.
Dave, excuse me.
You were saying, Jim, did I hear you say that Casella is a current hauler?
Yes.
Okay. The documentation here doesn't actually have a recommendation on it? Maybe,
I think down at the bottom, the action request, motion to award the trash, compost, and recycling services to, then we just hadn't finished it. It's, Casella is clearly the low number.
okay. I mean, normally, on the truck bid, we just,
Right.
it said awarded to Langway Chevrolet, so.
It does seem like it's missing.
I just want to be sure there wasn't some other consideration that you wanted us to be aware of.
No.
Can I ask one more question? With all the changes that are going on in the state and the way trash is handled, does that impact us in any way, or is Casella taking care of all of that?
We currently have Tam here at the middle school who is doing our composting
These separate
program. Right. and he's providing the containers and sawdust, and the product is moved out of the cafeteria on a daily basis. So the only change that we'll see is that it'll be Casella containers.
Does Casella have a composting facility?
Yes.
Can I make a copy of this? And no, make sure you make it.
Excuse me for going on. Are there any other questions on the trash bid? All those, we have a motion on the floor, don't we, Richard?
No.
Okay, we need a motion to accept the bid. Did you get the amount, Richard? $62,158.27. We have a second by Leon. Nelson, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we can move on then.
Why doesn't the chair ask for no's?
Excuse me?
Abstentions are...
There was nobody else, everybody said aye. Or, we'll go through.
No, whether everybody said aye? You don't even look up.
I did.
Thank you.
But anyway, we'll do it again, Nathan, thank you, I'm trying to get ahead of myself. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is passed. Thank you. Keep me honest, Nathan, that's good. We can move on down to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to accept it? We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda, those items in the consent agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Yes, to Dave. Very good. We go on to the personal contracts, off-contract people. I have a statement here to read to you to accept. The board approves a 3% wage increase for off-contract employees effective July 1st, 2016, with the exception of the academic mentor tutor positions, which will remain at a flat rate. Do we have a motion? There's a motion. Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? At the time, we did discuss this in an executive session, and the general consensus was to approve it. Yes.
Don't these increases typically follow the teacher's contract? So
Generally
why are we doing this now when we haven't settled with the teachers?
We don't have it settled with the teachers. Yeah, we're working on that right now, and the reason we want to get this is that we can still get it in so that the contracts can be issued. We have, if they are if they have a contract, if they're a member of the union, then they automatically stay with that contract until a new contract comes into place. But these people don't have a contract, so we have to issue them contracts. Make sense, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain.
Me too.
Okay, we've got two. Richard, all right? Okay, we can move on then. Special education, Dave?
The Education Committee met earlier this evening and wants to recommend a new position, Associate Director of Special Education, which would serve both the high school and the middle school. And the position would be funded from within the budget by eliminating up to 4 paraprofessionals.
Right, once again, the education, Dave, you want to just go through what recommended, the Education Committee recommended it to the board?
The committee did recommend that the board approve the position.
Very good. Do we have a motion then to accept? We have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good. Is there anything else you'd like to mention from the Education Committee,
I think this
Dave?
is a curl.
We had a conversation about, we had a general conversation about staffing levels at the high school and the middle school, and the request was made to the administration, to the superintendent, as we approach a budgeting season next fall, to prepare some information on classroom size, I guess essentially classroom size. Does that capture it?
Yeah.
Does that capture it, Ed?
To a certain extent, we didn't really define the methodology that are looking for, and we probably won't know what that is until we see the first itineration of the report.
The context was the concerns, statewide concerns over the amount of money spent on funding education, on staffing levels. It was expressed that the student-teacher ratios at both the middle school and the high school here in Mount Anthony are considerably higher than they are statewide, a positive variance. Nevertheless, I think the committee felt it wasn't a bad idea for the members of the board to have a good sense of what our staffing levels are and to be able to explain that to the community.
Very good.
Yes.
Let's see, I'm sorry, but did we vote on that, on the
position?
Position?
We did.
We did, okay. Very good. We can move on then to administrator's report.
Well, last meeting, you asked me for end-of-the-year dates, and on there are the awards nights and graduation.
Oh, thank you.
And it would be nice real soon to know how many board members will be attending the graduation, so we can...
Right.
prepare.
And with the same procedure as last time, did they show up? Okay.
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Tim? Or do you have something else, sir?
Well, when will I know? You'll get back to me?
Yeah. And us board members would like to tell her now if you're going to be able to make graduation or any of these other meetings?
I don't even know the dates.
Sue, when is it?
It's the 12th. It's on the piece.
I cannot. I will be out of the area.
Let me ask each board member, please, to notify Sue by the end of the week if they're going to, so you can check your calendar and everything else. Please let her know.
If you're going to be there.
Is that all right, Sue? Yeah.
Yes, if you're going to be there.
If you're going to be there, that's great. Anything else, Sue?
No, Morgan has.
Okay, so let me go through with Tim, then we'll go down to Morgan. Sure. Tim?
The two things I wanted to just recognize that we will have a new associate principal in the fall. Chris Maguire, who is currently a 6th grade teacher at the middle school. He's been teaching for 10 years, and for the last 6 years served as the director of the Mosaic after school and summer programs. We had a process, we had a number of candidates, over 20 folks sent us applications. We had a search committee of teachers and a community parent, actually. We interviewed 5 candidates, and the committee and I had a good discussion about that, and Chris was one of the finalists. He did everything that we asked. He visited, he met with staff, he met with kids, and it was my pleasure to recommend him to the superintendent for that position. He's very excited about moving from the teaching side of the school to the administrative piece, and I need to thank Mary Ellen Breen, who will be retiring this year on July 1st. He will be assuming her position as second associate principal in the building, so we're really excited about that transition. You want to jump back to, well, I guess I would just add one date since everybody has the handout from the high school. You may want to add a note that the 8th grade celebration at the middle school will be the following Friday, that is the 19th. Ceremony starts at 6 p.m. But we encourage folks, we invite board members and the superintendent and central office administrators to join us. I would encourage you to arrive a little bit early. We will have seats set aside for you. And I would ask the same thing as Sue did, is that you just let us know in advance, and we'll be glad to set aside the number of seats for you and partners so that you have adequate seating.
Tim, could you repeat the time?
6 o'clock at the 19th.
6 o'clock is when the ceremony starts. We encourage you to arrive a little early. It's pretty well attended. There is a rain plan. We hold it inside. So again, if you could just let us know how many are coming, and we will gladly set aside seats for you.
Thank you. Anything else? We're going to do that.
Sure. I have two things I'd like to talk about tonight. The first one is the musical Hairspray that students at the high school put on in collaboration with students from Cedar Grove High School, which is in New Jersey. It was put on in coordination with Stephen Cutts, who was actually on Broadway he starred in the Hairspray musical. So the school was really excited to work not only with him but also with the other high school. And I didn't go myself, but from what I heard from the rest of the students and community, it was a fabulous performance and was one of the best that the high school has seen. So that was really exciting to hear that it was so positive. And the second thing I want to talk about is the lip dub that we did. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. It is on YouTube. If you Google, or if you YouTube MAUHS lip dub, I believe it'll pop up as the first one. And it was made for Mrs. Maguire as a retirement gift, but Mrs. Sweet and Mrs. Gabrus put it on and are planning to do a similar thing in coming years if there's student interest. And what was really amazing about it was that the school put it together in 30 minutes. Mrs. Maguire was out of the building for a Thursday and a Friday, and we had a rehearsal on Thursday for 15 minutes, and I actually filmed it on the Friday, also in 15 minutes, and it was phenomenal. It was way better than everyone was expecting with such little time to put it together, and everyone was really excited to be a part of it. A large number of clubs and groups and teams from the school participated, and also just like the majority of the student body gathered to participate in something and come together to create one good production, and it was really awesome. And so if you're interested in it, go on YouTube and check it out. It's really cool.
I had a chance to look at it. It really is very impressive. And you see all those kids marching down the corridor and then going into the gym. It must have been very emotional for you, Sue, I could imagine. Very impressive. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that's all.
Tim?
Yes.
The Rutland Herald had great coverage of that picture and front page and everything. Nice story on that.
Oh, is that right? Good.
Yeah, the Rutland Herald talked a little bit about some of the main students that were involved in it, which included Ben Richmond, who videoed the whole thing, and Jesse Kuzmicki and Molly Center were our two seniors who were really involved and planned the whole thing out, so thanks to them for that.
Very good.
Isaac, do you have anything you want to add?
Maybe standardized testing, is that something that we covered here?
Yeah, I mean, just that we just finished the science week here?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm a junior at the high school, and we took a week of SBAC testing, which was the, I believe we covered the English and literature portion and math portion. And we finished with our kneecap testing for the science piece. So juniors are all finished with standardized testing.
That's good. How did it all go? It's the first time we've done the SBAC test, the computers and all that.
Yeah, it was, I had no problems with it. Technology-wise, everything was smooth.
Good. Good. Well, that's great. Congratulations. I know that it was a big event not only for the high school but also for the middle school, and I understand that it went well in both places. So that's congratulations to all that were involved. Okay, we can move on, Superintendent.
Tim.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I would be remiss if I could add one more announcement.
Only one.
All right. This weekend is Mayfest, and there is student art being displayed at Fiddlehead. So I would encourage folks who will be going down, because the weather should be lovely, to take a stop in there and view the art. The art teachers will kill me if I didn't make that announcement. And one other thing is that The chorus and band will be performing their spring concerts here at the middle school on Monday, the 8th of June, and Tuesday, the 9th of June, starting at 7 p.m. Those are usually really well attended. And again, the community is more than welcome to join us for those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
Okay. Few things, given the hour. Said it before, it's worth repeating. Monday, June 8th, we will send out invitations to the board at 5:30 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. Will be a reception for the public to meet Glenda Cresto. Tim, one thing that I wanted to mention on the middle school, I have an email sent to me that on Wednesday, June 10th, from 3 to 3:30 at MAU Middle School, first floor project room, it's the premiere of a PSA that your students did. Do you know about that? For healthy eating? Do you have?
Yes.
So,
That is,
and I've been asked by this to invite board members who'd be interested in attending on, so that is, and maybe you could speak more to what, I know the date, Wednesday, June 10th, from 3 to 3:30 at Mount Anthony Union Middle School, first floor project room. The students had created a healthy eating public service announcement, which will be premiering that day. Now, I don't know what students, what class did that. I received this from Southwestern Vermont Medical Center. Do you?
So this is a collaboration between middle school and the medical center, who has a VISTA volunteer working with them this year, and part of their work is working with students to kind of impact the community, how we eat and how we take care of ourselves. So the project was filmed this past week, and they'll be premiering that on the 10th, and we'd invite folks to come and visit it. It should be fun.
Good.
I also want to say that I thought the lip dub was awesome. It was very impressive. I hope it gets even more play. It really, I have forwarded it to everybody I can think of, so I was very impressed with that. The last thing I can't remember if I've discussed it with this board, so just to be sure, I am asking that you vote that the last day of school will be Friday, June 19th for students. Staff will return on Monday, the 22nd. We will still be in compliance with the state. We'll be over the required amount of days that our students need to be in school, but I think it's educationally prudent to end on a Friday, not bring them back on Monday. And we have a tremendous amount of professional development going on that following week, starting with our staff. And if we did have the students in school that late on the 22nd, I'm not sure we would have enough substitutes for everybody. So my recommendation, if the board would approve, that the last day of school would be June 22nd for students. June 19th, Friday, June 19th for students. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? We need a motion then?
So
How would you like to word that motion, Jim?
Last day of school for students will be Friday, June 19th.
Second.
You have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good.
And that's all I have tonight.
Okay, our next meeting will be June 17th. Leon is going to be refereeing a game. I've asked Rob to, I may be a little late, so he's going to run the meeting, and thank you very much, Rob. As you know, the legislature passed a new bill on education, Bill 361. We're still trying to decipher what it means, and we'll be able to tell you more at our next meeting.
Yep.
It will have some impact on future budgets.
Has the governor signed it yet?
Yes.
He did? That I didn't hear yet.
Yeah, I know that the legislature is adjourned, and I think that he has signed it. So anyway, there's a good deal in it, but just to let you know that we are well aware of it, and we will be reporting to you on it at our next meeting or very shortly after.
Also, I forgot to mention mediation, so if you want to give them that update.
I did executive session.
Executive session, okay.
I think that's all. Policies?
Yeah. Policies up tonight is policy 5085, search and seizures for adoption. Mount Anthony.
I'll move it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Very good.
Policy number 6141, computer network and internet acceptable use, was a long working policy to combine everything and upgrade our technology in this particular area here. So this is the first warning for Mount Anthony to go through that and go through this policy.
Need a motion?
No.
Need a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes. Dave.
Is this a brand-new policy?
This is a new policy, 6141, is taking the place of some other policies in there. You should have got that, it was on the site.
I'm looking at it right now. Yep, it's on the
Okay.
site, and I'm only asking because there is nothing indicating if there were modifications and changes from an existing policy, so I gather it's...
It's a new policy that's going to take the place and remove some of our old technology pieces that are referenced in the bottom of the policy piece that you see there.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstention? No? Very good.
Okay, and just want to say that we did have a policy meeting this past month, and I had Dick France chair the meeting for me, which we co-chair to discuss some things, and I think Kristen came and shared some information. I didn't get all the details yet about some things that they wanted to have at the high school. So I just want to encourage everybody to continually to look at the policy and come to the meetings, and that it's a fun time to take the particular things and work on them to develop them and review the particular policy.
Are there any other points, questions any board member like to bring up? Accept a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Opposed?